Sometimes in a game, the most brutal hits don't come from the players, they come from the commentators.
Now a 38-yard extra point try. I guess they're just not used to scoring touchdowns.
You're a bad man.
In the NFL, and really all of pro sports now, the broadcast is a huge part of the viewing experience. The right commentators can either make or break the entire deal. There's nothing worse than a commentator that misses the mark with either their analysis, or even worse, a comedic jab.
Big old knee brace on, hitting the wrist, it doesn't matter. He pulls another rabbit out of his head.
Conversely, one of the best things we've seen happen on a broadcast is when the commentator starts to roast a player and cracks a joke at his expense. So let's take a look back at 10 of the most memorable times a commentator mocked an NFL player on live TV. An easy place to start here is with a classic Booger McFarland line that he delivered at the expense of the former Bills wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin. That is, if you want to call him a wide receiver, because after watching a night of the former first-round pick trying and failing miserably at getting even the slightest bit of separation from his defenders, Booger decided that he'd seen enough and roasted Benjamin.
When you look at Kelvin Benjamin, guys, he's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
And you know what? I don't blame Booger. Not for a second. If there's one thing that we've all come to know about Kelvin Benjamin after watching how his uninspiring career deteriorated after a promising start, it is that he never cared enough to stay in shape.
Lynn, cancel my afternoon meetings. I gotta hit more balls at this fat kid.
So if Booger wants to call a spade, I say more power to him. Besides, McFarland's assessment was honestly favorable compared to reality. As it turned out, Benjamin wasn't just a Popeye's biscuit away from becoming a tight end. He was a Popeye's biscuit away from getting ousted from the league entirely. Guess teams aren't too crazy about a wideout that's pushing 260 and can't get a lick of space off his man. Kelvin Benjamin is not the first player to get roasted for his weight, though. We saw it during a matchup between the then San Diego Chargers and the New England Patriots, when New England's defensive tackle, Vince Wilfork, lived every man's dream and found himself with the ball in his hands after an epic interception. After dropping back into coverage in the flat, Wilfork made an awesome play to intercept the ball, and it looked like he had the opposing end zone in his sights. The only problem, his ambition didn't quite match his speed, and one of the Chargers players closed in on him and brought him down before he could score. So, naturally, the commentators had to get a dig in at his expense.
Probably the first time he's running down the field going, wish I'd have lost a couple pounds during the offseason, but...
It was delivered in good fun, and considering he is likely a future Hall of Famer who had to carry a lot of weight to perform at his position, I don't think it was much skin off of Wilfork's back. This next excerpt dates back to a now seemingly prehistoric matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chicago Bears. Jaguars quarterback Mark Brunell tried to throw a screen pass down into the flat, and he somehow didn't notice the man now known as Big Keith Traylor, the 340-pound defensive lineman who made a sick play tipping the ball up to himself, intercepting it, and breaking down the field. To his credit, he made it way farther than Wilfork did. He rumbled damn near 70 yards to the opposing red zone before one of the Jags players caught up to him. It was during that impressive run that the broadcaster delivered that all-time call, telling the viewers at home that Traylor had the earth shaking on his run back.
Big Keith Traylor, look at him rumble! Watch out, the earth is shaking! Oh my!
The only thing that would have made the call better is if Traylor had somehow finished the run and made it into the end zone. It would have been great to hear what kinds of comments that would have drawn.
Well, I know Chicago already has a refrigerator. Maybe they got room for an ice maker.
It isn't just the big guys who get dragged for their speed, though. We saw a pretty classic jab at the man many referred to as the GOAT, Tom Brady, for his running ability. Or rather, lack thereof. As a member of the Bucs, Brady was matched up against an old foe, the Atlanta Falcons. His team was leading early in the second quarter and moving the ball down the field. They looked ready to add to their 10-3 lead. On 3rd and 10, Tommy broke the pocket, and that's when the announcers got their roasted. After noting how much room Brady had to run, if, that were something that he ever did.
A lot of room to run, but Tom doesn't do that. For the end zone! Touchdown for the Bucs!
This was a pretty hilarious sequence of events because the commentators were getting jokes off at the expense of possibly the best to ever do it. And bam, he fires one down the field into the end zone right after. It's almost like he knew somewhere deep in his soul that they were chirping him. And like Brady often does, he made them look silly, firing a 30-yard touchdown pass downfield to Antonio Brown, putting the Pats up 2 scores en route to an easy victory. Where did the wise? Careful to mock Brady. He may be slow on foot, but always quick to make his doubters look dumb. Speaking of speed, we've also seen some commentators try to crack wise about players who are actually fast as well. And, well, when Gus Johnson did so, he missed the mark so badly that his joke nearly cost him his job. The incident in question came while Johnson was calling a game between the Tennessee Titans and Jacksonville Jaguars. Tennessee running back Gus Johnson was in the midst of an epic run for the end zone. And Johnson, who is known for his emotional calls, got a little too excited and asserted that Johnson had, quote-unquote, getting away from the cops' speed.
Johnson gets a shoulder square! Watch out! He's got getting away from the cop speed!
Now, I don't think that Johnson made those remarks with any malice, but there were some in the media who felt like there were some racial undertones in his comments. And subsequently, he had to make a public apology afterwards, albeit one that was rather half-hearted, saying, "If there is a perception of racism in this analogy, it is not coming from me," Johnson said. People of all races have to run from the law. However, to those who are offended, I apologize. I guess the moral of the story is, it's good to be funny as a commentator, but be careful. The line is always lurking, dare you cross it. And there can be consequences if you do. Sticking to the weird world of broadcasters referencing the police and their attempts at mocking a player on live TV, how about the remark that NFL quarterback turned broadcaster Booger McFarland made at the expense of the New York Jets defense? The incident in question took place during a brutal showing from the Jets in a Monday Night Football matchup with the Indianapolis Colts. While the Jets were en route to taking a 41-10 loss, a rogue fan decided that he had seen enough and decided to streak across the field. One of the broadcasters, Kevin Harlan, who has a knack for capturing the magic in these sorts of moments, was excitable as usual.
Did you see that like tackle? Oh, and the other guy's knocked down.
Harlan quieted, and just like that, it was Esiason's time to shine.
They're actually hitting harder than the Jets defense.
It isn't just the scrubs like the Jets defense that year that can catch the smoke from the commentators, though. We have seen all pros like Jamal Charles and more recently Aaron Rodgers get flamed by commentators getting jokes off at their expense. Starting with the former, Charles's roasting took place while he was a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. KC was in the midst of a tightly contested Thursday night football matchup with the Denver Broncos. The two teams were all knotted up at 24 in the final seconds of the fourth quarter, and Kansas City had the ball. Seemingly playing for overtime, they handed the ball to Charles for what they thought was a low-risk way to milk the rest of the clock. But the former All-Pro inexplicably coughed it up, allowing the Broncos defensive back, Bradley Roby, to scoop it up and score. And Charles's blunder gave away any chance that Kansas City had at overtime and a victory. Needless to say, the broadcasters were sure to let him have it.
Yeah, it's tough. At least he held on to the helmet.
A bit of a cheap shot if you ask me, but a quality chirp. Moving to the latter, Aaron Rodgers, who is a surefire Hall of Famer, also found himself on the wrong side of a commentator's mockery. It came during a recent high-profile matchup with another key NFC contender, the Los Angeles Rams.
He took a pain-killing injection pregame where he said he can only feel 9 toes, and he told us his play will not be limited.
Fox broadcaster Joe Buck saw and took an opportunity to have some fun at the reigning league MVP's expense.
So Aaron is telling us that he's had that toe immunized against the pain.
This, of course, was a reference to Rodgers' COVID-19 vaccination scandal, which has been a media firestorm ever since it broke. Not a surprise to see Joe go for the low-hanging fruit here, though. In fact, we've seen him get similar cheapo-style roast-off at the expense of other NFL signal callers, too. Like when Buck dissed former Browns quarterback Johnny Manziel after his admittedly putrid NFL debut, going on a brutal monologue in which he pretended to speak from Manziel's perspective.
Hi, my name is Johnny Manziel. You might know me as Johnny Football. I made my first start here in Week 15. How'd I do? Oh, I went 10 for 18, 2 interceptions, threw for 80 yards, had a quarterback rating of 27.3. and lost to the Bengals 30-0. Off to Canton you go.
Perhaps Buck has a type, because he's also gotten some jokes off at the expense of Baker Mayfield, who many have compared to Johnny Manziel over the years. I feel a little bad for Mayfield here, because Buck's comments were even cheaper here, as the quarterback was actually sidelined with an injury when Joe started in on him.
Baker Mayfield working harder on the sideline than he is in a game.
No doubt that Baker, Mr. Chip on the Shoulder himself, probably didn't take too kindly to those comments when he heard them. Which do you think was the most epic roasting of an NFL player that we've seen on live TV? Have we missed anything? Join us in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.